Welcome back to the Science of Ageless Living, the podcast where we dive deep into the biology of health, longevity, and living without the burdens of age. I'm your host, Dr. Ethan Hausman-Marquis, and I'm thrilled to have you here today. If you've been following along, you know we tackle the tough topics, the ones that bridge cutting-edge science with real-world application. And today's episode is no exception. We're talking about something that frustrates patients and clinicians alike: fatigue and autoimmune disease, and why so many well-intentioned treatments miss the mark. Think about it. If you or someone you work with has multiple sclerosis, lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, or another autoimmune condition, you've probably heard this phrase before: "I'm exhausted, but my labs are fine." It's a common refrain, and the knee-jerk response is often, "Let's boost your energy." We're talking NAD plus infusions, stimulants, aggressive mitochondrial stacks. Push harder, power through, and sometimes it helps. Patients feel a surge, get back on their feet, and it seems like a win. But other times, it makes things worse. Crashes follow the highs, symptoms flare up, and everyone wonders what went wrong. Today, I want to flip the script. I want to explain why fatigue in autoimmune disease is not an energy deficiency problem, why more energy is not the same as better health, and why restraint, yes, holding back, is often the most intelligent intervention we have. We'll break this down step by step, drawing from the latest research on mitochondria, inflammation, and the body's innate wisdom. So grab a cup of tea, settle in, and let's unravel the mysteries of autoimmune fatigue. By the end of this episode, you'll have a new lens for understanding and addressing this elusive symptom. All right, let's start with a hard truth that needs to be said loud and clear. Autoimmune fatigue is biological, not psychological. It's not laziness. It's not just depression. And it's certainly not because someone is out of shape or deconditioned. If you've ever been dismissed with advice like just exercise more or get more sleep, you know how invalidating that can feel. But the science backs you up. This is real measurable biology at play. Take multiple sclerosis, for example. In MS, fatigue is one of the most common and debilitating symptoms, affecting up to 80% of patients. It's often disproportionate to the activity level. You could have a light day and still feel wiped out. It's not relieved by sleep. In fact, many people wake up feeling just as exhausted as when they went to bed. And it can be worsened by heat, stress, or even a minor illness. This isn't just physical tiredness, it's mentally and physically crushing, like your brain and body are running on fumes. Why does this happen? It all comes down to the intricate conversation between the immune system and the nervous system. In autoimmune diseases, the immune system is in overdrive. Attacking the body is undergiant bone tissues. That constant battle is expensive, energetically speaking. Inflammation, the hallmark of these conditions, disrupts everything. First, it messes with neurotransmitters. Things like serotonin and dopamine, which regulate mood and energy, get thrown off balance. Second, it alters hypothalamic signaling, the brain's control center for hormones and energy regulation. Third, it changes autonomic tone, shifting you into a fight or flight state that's exhausting over time. And fourth, it ramps up oxidative stress, creating free radicals that damage cells. But here's the key point for today's discussion. Inflammation profoundly alters mitochondrial behavior. Mitochondria, those powerhouse organelles in our cells, aren't just sitting there churning out energy. In an inflammatory environment, they adapt, and not always in ways that make us feel peppy. We'll dive deeper into that in the next part. But for now, remember this. If you're dealing with autoimmune fatigue, it's not in your head. It's a sophisticated biological response to an ongoing threat. Dismissing it as psychological does a disservice to patients and misses opportunities for real healing. Let me share a quick story to illustrate. I once worked with a patient named Sarah who has lupus. She was a high achiever, always pushing through her fatigue with coffee and willpower. But after a flare, she'd crash hard, bedridden for days. Her doctors told her to build stamina with exercise, but that only made it worse. Once we addressed the underlying inflammation and respected her body's signals, her energy started to stabilize. It wasn't about forcing more activity. It was about listening to the biology. So if you're a clinician listening, please validate your patient's experiences. And if you're a patient, know that your fatigue is valid. It's your body's way of saying, hey, something's up. Stick with me as we explore how mitochondria fit into this puzzle. Okay, let's pick up right where we left off. We've already seen that autoimmune fatigue isn't in your head. It's deeply biological, driven by chronic inflammation, disrupting the whole system. Now let's zoom in on the real stars of the show, mitochondria. If you remember high school biology, mitochondria are the powerhouses of the cell, cranking out ATP, the energy currency that fuels muscle movement, thinking, everything. That's accurate, but it's only part of the story. Mitochondria are way more sophisticated. They're immune sensors, stress detectors, regulators of cell death, apoptosis, and major signaling hubs that talk to the rest of the cell and even the broader immune system. Here's the fascinating evolutionary twist. Mitochondria evolved from ancient bacteria that were engulfed by early eukaryotic cells billions of years ago in what's called endosymbiosis. They still carry some of that bacterial intelligence, their own circular DNA, bacterial-like proteins, and the ability to sense danger, much like immune cells do. In a healthy cell, they're humming along efficiently. But in autoimmune diseases, where chronic inflammation is constant, mitochondria switch into a protective, defensive mode. They deliberately downregulate ATP production, ramp up reactive oxygen species, ROS, for signaling shift fuel use, maybe more glycolysis, less efficient oxidative phosphorylation, and lower overall efficiency. This sounds backward. Why slow down energy output when the body needs it most? But it's actually a smart survival strategy. In a high inflammation environment, full of oxidative stress, immune attacks, and tissue damage, pushing full-speed ATP production could accelerate harm. It might fuel more free radicals, worsen cell injury, or even trigger bigger autoimmune flares. So mitochondria dial it back to prioritize survival over peak performance. They're not broken. They're responding intelligently to a real threat. This is backed by solid research. In multiple sclerosis, for example, studies show altered mitochondrial function in neurons and immune cells, where the focus shifts to protection rather than max output. In lupus, damaged mitochondria release oxidized mtDNA fragments that act like danger signals, fueling more inflammation through pathways like TLRs and C-gas sting. And ROS, often painted as villains, but in controlled amounts, they serve as messengers, activating protective pathways like NRF2, which boosts antioxidant defenses and helps the cell weather the storm. This reframing is huge. When people say, my mitochondria are dysfunctional, let's just force them back online with high-dose supplements, NAD plus boosters, or intense therapies. That's often the wrong approach. It's like flooring the gas on an overheating engine. You might get a short burst, but you risk total breakdown. The smarter question is, what threat are the mitochondria sensing? Is it persistent inflammation from leaky gut, unresolved infections, chronic stress, or something else? Addressing those root causes lets mitochondria naturally shift back to efficient mode. In autoimmune fatigue, this isn't failure, it's feedback. Your body is protecting itself. Understanding this changes how we approach healing. Less forcing, more listening, and reducing the inflammatory load. In the next part, we'll dive into one popular intervention, NAD+, and why it can be a game changer for some, but backfire for others if the underlying signals aren't addressed. Stick with me. This biology is empowering. Your fatigue has a reason, and respecting it opens the door to real recovery. This is one of the most important points I want you to really hear today, so lean in close. More energy does not equal better health. You can increase your ATP levels, feel a surge of drive, get more done, push through tasks, and still be quietly making your autoimmune condition worse over time. It sounds completely backward, especially in a culture that worships productivity, hustle, and powering through. But biology doesn't care about your to-do list, your deadlines, or how impressive your output looks on paper. Here's why this matters so much. True healing, the kind of deep repair your body actually needs in autoimmune diseases, requires a completely different internal environment than high-performance mode. Think about what real recovery looks like. Remyelination in multiple sclerosis, rebuilding the protective coating around nerves, resolution of joint inflammation in rheumatoid arthritis, calming the overactive immune attack in lupus, or restoring proper immune regulation in any chronic autoimmune state. All of these repair processes happen best when your nervous system is in parasympathetic dominance, the classic rest and digest mode. In rest and digest, your body downshifts. Heart rate slows, digestion ramps up, inflammation signaling quiets, growth and repair hormones rise, and the immune system can finally shift from attack mode to cleanup and rebuilding mode. It's quiet, efficient, energy-conserving work. It's not flashy. It doesn't feel like crushing it, but it's where the actual healing gets done. Contrast that with what happens when we chase energy aggressively. Stimulants like caffeine or modafinil, high-dose NAD+ boosters, CoQ10 megadoses, intense workouts, or even sheer mental willpower to push through the fatigue. These all tend to activate the sympathetic nervous system, the fight-or-flight side. They create a high-energy, high-alert state. Great for short-term performance. Terrible for long-term repair. It's like this. Fatigue in autoimmune disease is often acting as a protective boundary, a built-in circuit breaker. When inflammation is high, immune activity is raging, oxidative stress is elevated, or reserves are low, your body trips that breaker on purpose to prevent catastrophic overload. It forces you to slow down so you don't burn through the last of your reserves or trigger a bigger flare. When we override that signal, when we keep forcing the breaker back on, we may get a temporary burst of energy and productivity, but we're stealing resources the body desperately needs for repair. We increase the risk of relapse, deepen future crashes, accelerate tissue damage, and prolong the overall disease process. Research supports this pattern clearly. Studies in rheumatoid arthritis patients, for example, have shown that during periods of active inflammation or instability, aggressive energy-boosting interventions, whether pharmacological or behavioral, often correlate with higher flare rates and worse long-term disease activity scores. On the flip side, strategies that emphasize paced rest, aggressive inflammation reduction, and allowing the body to stay in protective low-energy mode during vulnerable windows lead to better remission rates and more stable outcomes over years. Fatigue isn't always the villain we think it is. Sometimes it's your body's wisest ally saying, "Stop, we're not safe yet. Protect what's left so we can rebuild later." This doesn't mean we give up or resign ourselves to exhaustion forever. Not at all. It means we approach fatigue intelligently. First, we reduce the inflammatory load that keeps the system in alarm mode, anti-inflammatory nutrition, fixing gut permeability, if it's an issue, improving sleep quality, lowering chronic stress, addressing any lingering infections or environmental triggers. Then and only then do we gently layer in energy support when the body signals it's safer to speed up again. The timing and dose matter enormously. Restraint is a therapeutic tool, not a sign of weakness. The goal isn't to feel wired or pumped every day. The goal is sustainable health, energy that returns naturally because the threats are gone, the fire is out, and repair has had room to happen. In the next part, we'll get very practical. How to time interventions, how to dose supplements and movement wisely, when to push a little, and, most importantly, when the art of restraint is actually the most powerful medicine. Your body isn't broken for being tired. It's often protecting you with exquisite precision. Learning to work with that intelligence rather than against it is what opens the door to real, lasting recovery. Stick with me. We're moving into the actionable steps that turn understanding into transformation. So, if aggressive energy boosting isn't the answer, and we've established that pushing too hard can backfire, what does intelligent, effective intervention actually look like in autoimmune fatigue? It all boils down to mastering 3 key skills: timing, dosing, and restraint. These aren't glamorous or headline-grabbing like the latest super supplement or high-intensity protocol. They're quiet, disciplined practices, the difference between thoughtful, sustainable progress and well-intentioned mistakes that lead to setbacks. Let's start with timing, arguably the most overlooked and powerful of the 3. Your mitochondria aren't static. Their state changes with your body's overall environment. During a flare, when inflammation is roaring, cytokines are elevated, and oxidative stress is high, your mitochondria are in full defense mode, deliberately conserving energy and signaling threat detected. Introducing strong mitochondrial stimulants like NAD+ precursors, high-dose CoQ10, or other energy boosters at this point is like throwing gasoline on a smoldering fire. It can amplify the alarm signals, worsen symptoms, and prolong recovery. The same caution applies right after heavy interventions like steroid pulses. The body's recalibrating, hormones are shifting, and the system is fragile. Wait for windows of stability. When symptoms are milder, inflammatory markers like CRP or ESR are trend down, sleep is improving, and stress is manageable. Many people with autoimmune conditions notice predictable cycles, better days or weeks after a flare resolves, or seasonal patterns. Track them rigorously with a simple journal. Energy levels, pain, sleep quality, triggers. Use those calmer periods to introduce gentle supports. Timing isn't random, it's strategic listening. Next, dosing. The golden rule here is start lower than you think you need and go slower. For something like NAD+, whether precursors like NMN-NR orally or actual NAD+ infusions, aggressive high doses can trigger unwanted sympathetic activation, racing heart, anxiety, crashes, especially in sensitive systems. Clinical protocols often begin with much gentler entry points. Think 100, 250 milligrams for infusions, delivered slowly over 2-4 hours, not rushed in 30 minutes, or modest oral precursor doses, rather than jumping to 500 plus mg right away. Why? Slower delivery prevents those sharp spikes that overload an already taxed system. The same principle applies to CoQ10, B vitamins, or any mitochondrial nutrient. Low and slow. And crucially, change one variable at a time. Don't stack NAD+ boosters with caffeine, intense exercise, multiple new supplements, and a new diet all in the same week. Introduce one intervention, monitor for 1-2 weeks, energy, sleep, flares, mood, then adjust. This way, you can actually see what's helping versus what's overwhelming. Finally, and this is often the hardest for both patients and practitioners, restraint. Sometimes the most powerful intervention is doing less. Restraint means prioritizing the foundations that allow your body to down-regulate inflammation and let mitochondria naturally recalibrate. Deep, restorative sleep, supported gently with things like magnesium glycinate or low-dose melatonin if needed. An anti-inflammatory diet, load with omega-3 rich foods, wild salmon, flax, walnuts, colorful polyphenols, berries, turmeric, green tea, and gut-supportive elements like bone broth, fermented foods, or targeted probiotics. Add in low-stress movement, gentle walks in nature, breath work, or restorative yoga to shift toward parasympathetic rest and digest mode without demanding high energy output. Research in immunology and autoimmunity increasingly supports this less is more philosophy. Studies highlight that approaches prioritizing homeostasis, reducing inflammatory burden, supporting natural repair pathways, and avoiding overstimulation lead to more stable mitochondrial function and better long-term outcomes in conditions like rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, and others. Forcing the system before it's ready often backfires. How do you build these skills? Start with journaling. Note daily energy patterns, what you ate, sleep quality, stress, and any interventions. Look for patterns over weeks. Build a collaborative team, ideally a functional medicine practitioner, nutritionist, or coach who truly understands this nuance, not one pushing more is better. Remember, restraint isn't giving up or being weak. It's wisdom. It's trusting that your body has exquisite intelligence, protecting you with fatigue when threats remain, and rewarding you with sustainable energy when the coast is clear. Longevity and true recovery in autoimmune disease aren't about doing the most. They're about doing what your system can actually tolerate and integrate. Master timing, dosing, and restraint, and you'll shift from fighting your biology to partnering with it. This wraps up the core framework. In future parts, we can dive into specific protocols, troubleshooting common pitfalls, and real-life case examples. Your fatigue has a reason, and approaching it with these skills opens the door to genuine, lasting transformation. Keep going. You're building something powerful here. As we wrap up this episode of the Science of Ageless Living, let's bring it all home with the one core truth I hope stays with you long after today. Fatigue and autoimmune disease is not a failure of willpower. It's not always a broken mitochondria or a sign of defeat. More often than not, it's a deeply intelligent, protective signal from a body that's been under chronic threat for far too long. Your system isn't lazy, it's wise. It's doing exactly what evolution designed it to do. Conserve precious resources, raise the alarm, and say, not yet, we're not safe enough to go full speed. That signal, exhaustion, brain fog, the need to rest, is like a circuit breaker tripping to prevent a full electrical fire in the house. It's protection, not punishment. Our real job as patients, as clinicians, as loved ones and caregivers isn't to silence that signal with force or endless supplements. It's to understand it, respect it, and intervene with precision and patience. Sometimes the most advanced, cutting-edge medicine isn't doing more. It's knowing when to do less, when to listen first, when restraint becomes the most powerful form of healing. You've heard the science today. Mitochondria as danger sensors, the necessity of parasympathetic rest for true repair, the risks of overriding protective fatigue, and the quiet power of timing, dosing, and thoughtful restraint. This isn't about giving up. It's about partnering with your biology instead of fighting it. If this episode helped you see your fatigue in a new light, if it's given you permission to honor what your body is trying to tell you, please share it. Send it to a friend living with autoimmunity, a family member who doesn't quite understand, or even a healthcare provider who might benefit from this perspective. Your story and this knowledge could be the turning point for someone else. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. If you found value here, subscribe, leave a rating or review on your favorite platform. It truly helps us reach more people who need this message. I'll see you next time, where we'll dive into the fascinating role of the microbiome in longevity, how your gut ecosystem influences energy, inflammation, immunity, and even how gracefully we age. Until then, be kind to your body. Listen to its signals. Trust its intelligence. You're not broken. You're healing. Take good care. I'll talk to you soon. Until then, live agelessly. I'm Dr. Ethan Hausman-Marquis,